Hello and welcome to this, your appointment viewing here on NewsX in prime time every weekday. We have 5 months and more than 100 episodes, 100 hours of programming, hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, thinkers and wealth creators with a single purpose in mind. We have to be thinking about giving space to our own companies right here that are doing brilliant jobs in innovation and execution. We are all in the same boat called Team India. We need to succeed together. We bring you their stories, their ideas, their hopes and their challenges, and have been committed to doing this for a long period of time. We do this in partnership, of course, with Business World. And let me quickly put the introduction of the panel together. Joining us now, we have Piyush Jain. He's co-founder and CEO of ImpactGuru.com. Mr. Kushang, co-founder and CEO of Supply Note. Meghna Narayan is joining us, founder of Slurp Farm. Rachit Chawla, founder and CEO of Finway Capital. We also have Harsha Karunamanchi, founder of Kritsnam. And we have Rohit Manglik, CEO of EduGorilla, and as always, the editor-in-chief of Business World, Anurag Batra, joining us. Anurag ji, set up the conversation for us.
Start by asking Harsha, what has been the experience doing a business which is about water conservation, and your customers are primarily government and private companies. So how have been last 7 months for you?
It has been very tough. So the government has pulled back the orders that it has verbally committed because of the loss of funds. In India, primarily, water is free. So this is a huge hurdle. And most of the projects that we do are from the development funds that we take it as a loans. And we invite foreign companies to take the most of the jobs, and there are a lot of barriers for Indian company to enter into this market. So I would say things have been very hard, and it's struggling to enter the water market in India.
And, water is our most precious resource, and it is in scarcity. We all know it's in scarcity.
Right.
And if we continue to use the way we use water just now, I think in a couple of years we'll run out of water.
Very soon, sir.
So it's a very scary prospect.
Right.
Before COVID, nobody would focus on what the environment needs to be able to regenerate the resources. So tell us, a water tech, you broadly represent the water tech sector.
Right.
How big is the water tech sector? How many players does India have? And what are the problems to be solved?
So the majority of the sector here is government dominated. Most of the water is public operated, government operated. If you see the statistics, 89% of the water is used for the irrigation, 7% to 8% used for the industries, and 3 to 4% is used for the household. And majority of the players in the in water sector in India are European dominated. And we take the loans from the banks, ADB and World Bank, and these are development loans, and we invest into river management and canal management. But these loans at the end turn out into non-performing assets because we don't charge for the water, and there is no incentive for people to for the departments to.
I think it's free. Our mentality is water is perennial. It is free.
It is free.
Continue to be there. We don't. It's our birthright to have water. So I think that mentality of not, taking the reality of water being in limited supply, I think that mentality has to change. Let me bring Piyush Jain. Piyush, as Impact Guru, you work with corporates, you work with healthcare workers, you work with NGOs, you work with the whole ecosystem to be able to sensitize them towards attaining the SDG goals. And India has a unique issue. So tell me, what are the issues that Impact Guru is tackling right now? And in some way, you represent my belief that every business needs to be a impact business. We don't need to have separate kind of businesses that make an impact. Every mainstream business has to be an impact business. So tell us, how have been the last 7 months in terms of people focusing on the SDG goals? And post-corona, are we more sensitive and more geared up to solve these issues that confront our country?
Great, Anurag. Thanks a lot for inviting us. So first of all, the Sustainable Development Goal that Impact Guru is focused on is basically health and well-being. And actually, it's very unfortunate in India that every minute about 30 people get hospitalized. And out of our 800 million plus middle class population, which is not covered by Ayushman Bharat, about 70% of them, which is more than 500 million, they have no health insurance whatsoever. So the cause that Impact Guru is really working towards day and night is to help middle class patients afford, hospital care, whether it's for COVID-19, cancer, organ transplants, ICU, or any kind of expensive treatments. So the last 6 to 7 months have actually been really phenomenal because of the massive outpouring of generosity in the country. We've had people who've donated for all kinds of causes, whether for providing PPE supplies to government hospitals, providing food, to the poor, whether it's NGOs who are trying to help adopt the stray dogs, or people who are trying to help the migrant laborers who are going back to their states. So the generosity has really increased multifold in the last 6 to 7 months, that Impact Guru has actually broken all of its fundraising records. Every minute, more than 2 donations are actually taking place on our platform. So I think exactly as you mentioned, we believe that impact is something that every organization needs to aspire. And, in this entire COVID-19 period, we've seen, from individuals to non-profits to public leaders to companies, everybody has stepped up to do their bit. But look, the pandemic is still, we are right in the middle of it, and there's still a very, very long way to go. And we look forward to everybody's support to continue on this journey to help every single person who requires that kind of funding help through Impact Guru.
Piyush, we wish you luck. Give us a sense of money you raised in the last 7 months. And, what is the outlook for the next 6 to 9 months in terms of your fundraise?
So we've raised more than 100 crores in the last 6 to 7 months, all in the form of donations, which people do not need to return back, with about 80% of that going towards healthcare related causes. I think as we look forward from here, we're only looking at that to scale as the country is opening up further, and people are also becoming more and more open towards alternative financing for their healthcare expenses. Even though interest rates are low, it's still fundamentally very difficult for people to get loans, with banks and NBFCs still being a bit shy on lending because of the rising unemployment in the country. And the reality is that, reality is if you have 25 lakh requirement, a bank will not want to give a 1 or 2 lakh rupees loan to you because that will not meet your funding need. And so I think people have realized that crowdfunding is mainstream in India and it can really solve a very significant problem. Recently, Anurag, one patient raised 1.3 crore rupees in 10 days time on our platform for their cancer treatment. And I think that's only been possible because of the rise in smartphone penetration, the rise in generosity, and the rise in internet payments penetration, right, through UPI and many other alternative ways that people are transacting.
Kudos to you, Piyush. Let me go to Kushang. Kushang, when COVID happened, not only the demand side was disrupted, the supply side saw a huge disruption. Now you're a supply chain and a supply tech company. Tell us what has happened in your space and how do you see the next 6 to 9 months?
First of all, Anurag, thank you for having us here. So the last 6 to 7 months have been like a smooth curve actually, which went down very sharply, and now it is coming back actually. So as you know, the demand is something which the government has been focusing to revive, and for that, the supply chain has to be there up to the mark, right? So we as a company, SupplyNote, we provide tools in the focused on food and beverage industry, and we help the overall procurement to become digital and make it seamless, right? So we have seen a huge dip on the user side when people were looking out for options and they were looking out for suppliers. There was a huge dip in the month of April, May, but soon afterwards, June and July, what we have seen a sharp rise again. There have been the signals have been encouraging, and we are hoping that we'll see very good traction in the coming months. We are almost to 70 to 80% of capacity pre-COVID, and hopefully we'll be crossing that on the platform. Also, we have seen a lot of innovations happening in the industry, especially the need to understand how they're spending has increased, and supply node plays a very critical part there as well. So overall, industry wise, I'm seeing the overall return coming back, but definitely there was a huge downfall.
And Kushank, what are the threats and opportunities? So what are the problems to be solved, and in turn they may create opportunities for you as a company? I'm talking of the sector. I'm not necessarily talking of your company. So give us a sense of what are the issues that we deal. For example, the cost of supply chain in India is 12 to 14%. If you compare it with most advanced countries, it's 8%. In some countries like Germany, it's as low as 6%. So if we can bring down the cost of logistics for companies, we can make companies more profitable and hence grow the GDP. So give us a sense of what are the issues that we are dealing with.
Yeah, so Anurag rightly pointed out, the cost of operations in our country is very much more. A lot of that goes to the manner in which we manage supply chain today. So it's mostly offline, and we are losing more than 100,000 data points on each transaction we are performing, because there are multiple stakeholders, and the communication is pretty much WhatsApp based or a call based management is what we are following today. So to bring down the cost of operations, which is of critical essence, considering the impact which is needed at the bottom line of the SME and the MSME of the Indian country. So there a digital transformation is required, and that's what we are focusing on as an industry. A lot of effort have been put, and we are seeing good adoption. So one of the biggest threat is that early, while the pandemic started and before pandemic, the adoption was slow of the online solutions. But now as an opportunity, what we are seeing is that there's a very good attraction towards digital solutions, and people are keen to understand. And obviously the mobile penetration and mobile based solutions have helped the industry to adopt faster. So that is what is encouraging for the industry overall.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Meghna here. Meghna, the consciousness of every individual has gone up in terms of the kind of nutrition they have, the kind of food they eat. Immunity is linked to the food you eat. Of course, immunity is also about good quality hygiene. It's about good quality sleep. It's about good quality movement and exercise. But food in India is a big, my driver was jokingly saying the only two people who made money in COVID, one is the food guys, and the other is the pharmacy guys. He was saying it to me in a very crude way yesterday. But you manufacture, food products that are higher up in the value chain, but are better for human body. So give us a sense of what's happened to your company and your domain in the last 7 months.
Sure. Thanks again for having us. And whatever folks here have said really resonated with us. That curve that the team at Supply Node saw is what we saw as well. Sort of everything went into shutdown in March. But as you were saying, the conversation on healthy eating is no longer something people are doing a little bit of the time. It is what they are doing all the time. They're thinking about it all the time. And it almost feels like we've been saying this for now 4 years about eating well, eating healthy all the time, right? And removing trans fats, removing refined flours, eating traditional Indian grains like millets, like ragi, jowar, and so on. Then you won't have to eat the vitamin pill, and pharmacy businesses won't have to soar, right? So the idea is to eat a wholesome diet all the time. So that, I think, that given that conversation is back to the center of the plate and the drawing room all the time, we've seen a huge uptake, in terms of traction, both and especially online, right? So I would say we used to be a 50-50 online-offline business. We are now a 90-10 business, which is 90% of our sales come from our own website and e-commerce platforms. And that has seen a huge, uptake.
Dare I say, Meghna, your product, I live in Delhi in Defense Colony, and there is an organic store there. I buy your products from there for the last few years, maybe 1.5, 2 years, I've been buying that. And, I agree with you that the kind of nutrients Indian traditional, food has are underplayed. We possibly don't need vitamin pills if we eat some of the nutrients that we are supposed to get from our natural food. So I'm totally with you when you say that. But give us a sense, like you said, 90% is now through e-commerce, 10% in physical modern retail. But give us a sense in terms of numbers. Are you, if you were in February at 100, are you at 150? Are you at 200? Are you at 70? What kind of numbers?
We're at 200 now.
Yes,
Basically.
clearly the adoption of such food is growing. So that augurs well. You all need money to be able to run your businesses. And so let me bring in Rajat. Rajat, you run a financial marketplace where SMEs can take loans. Give us a sense through numbers, what's happening in the economy, what's happened in September, October, and how do you see the uptake of credit and money over the next 6 months? Rachit?
Thank you, Anurag, for having me. So we are seeing a really high jump in demand. When you say September, we actually witnessed that demand starting right from end of July. So, towards end of July, we saw a lot of action, especially in the financial services sector, wherein a lot of companies started coming forward to restructure their debts. All thanks to the government stimulus package. The government did a great job by pumping in the liquidity through partners like us to the hands of the end consumer. They could actually see big companies coming down, calling the people that, okay, you have a pre-sanctioned amount which is lying with us from the government of India, no processing fees, you take down the money. Now, obviously, there's a lot of documentation that goes in releasing the money, so we kind of help all the consumers. But having said that, right from first week of August, we have seen a great surge in demand, not just in debt, in terms of the mindset of the consumer. They have gone really, I would say, very smart in terms of the value of the money. They want to restructure their debt. They want to restructure the kind of services they were getting before. They have started taking new products which did not exist before this. Definitely a lot of digital fintech companies have come up because they don't want people doing manual processing or, just to get a loan, people visiting them, doing personal discussions. So I think demand is huge. When I say demand is huge, definitely at ground level, certain companies have scaled up. Like, for instance, Meghna. Honestly, I did not know Slurp brand of Meghna is an Indian brand. My son eats it day in, day out. We are a big fan. Till now, I was so it's an international brand, right?
The packaging is very international. It's very catchy. It's very colorful.
Correct.
And dare I say it's really premium.
Good design is not international. This is, this is my pet peeve. We get that a lot.
I'm glad it's Indian.
कहाँ से है? नहीं यार, India से है.
It's, but I'm saying it as a compliment. It's packaging. The Americans and the Europeans are better than us in product packaging. I mean, it's fantastic, and it's absolutely a premium brand in terms of the money that we pay for it, and happily so. Go on, Rachit, you were giving a sense.
So when I say the demand is increasing, all of a sudden, Corona has divided into two different groups. One group which is struggling. There are certain sectors which are really bleeding. We are not able to help them because the policy of the bank has suddenly become negative. They don't want to go near them. But on the contrary, segments like where Meghna is, FMCG, right? Or maybe hospital or pharma, all of a sudden they have become the favorites. Now, the favorites are getting 2x leverage, whereas the negative industry is getting 0 leverage. We are not affected because we cater to both. But I think probably the government has also come up with an announcement that there's going to be second stimulus package, which will be focused on only those people who are hit very badly. So probably they are thinking down those lines, but we are seeing a huge gap between the negative sectors and positive sectors. For us,
can give us a sense through examples and numbers, Rachit.
So when I say numbers, earlier we were doing suppose 100x, even now we are at 100x. The problem is the demand has gone to 200%, but the supply is still at the same level. So for us, if the supply is still at the same level, we can't increase our production. We are dependent on certain factors.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, Rachit. Rohit, you come from a sector that has really in the 7 months seen an uptake like it has never seen. And dare I say to you and all entrepreneurs, COVID is the chief transformation officer or the chief digital officer of most of our companies. EduTech sector has seen so much activity, so much money, so many new players. Tell us what has happened with your business at EduGorilla, and where do you see EduGorilla going in the next 6 months?
Sure. So, Anurag, when you said to Meghna that the two people that made money, I believe the third person who type of companies that made money are tech companies. So, talking about what we do at EduGorilla, we are a one-up online test series company. We focus on state and competitive exams. And over the last 7 months, our sales has increased by 100%. Our user base has increased by 80%. So there's an increase in the conversion ratio as well because of the COVID scenario. And we have seen a new type of audience that emerged, and that is more stick with the online pattern, which they have never realized that ever existed. So, for example, in last 7 months, the number of tests taken on our platform has increased from 78 to 168 per minute. So that's the impact that we are getting. And especially because of the unemployment rate has increased by 27% over the last 7 months. Right? So that's the place where we see the biggest surge, the highest of audience that they are coming to us to prepare for the government jobs. Now going further, I believe for the next 6 months, the trend is going to continue. We are still getting good growth. The rate of increment is still around 17% on month-to-month basis. So yeah, everything is going great right now. And by the way, we were able to close the current round because of in the COVID scenario.
You've been able to raise capital. And clearly, EduTech has seen almost $2 billion of investments in the last 8 months. And every company wants to be an EduTech company. They've rebranded, some have been very opportunistic about it. But let me go to Piyush Jain again. Piyush, India is unique. India has lots of problems to solve, whether it's water that Harsha is trying to solve, whether it's supply chain that Supply Note and Kushang are trying to solve, whether it's the kind of food that builds immunity that Meghna is trying to solve, or capital that Rachit is trying to solve, or education and jobs and test prep for government jobs that Rohit is trying to solve. I mean, we can come up with more issues but tell us what are the top 3 issues that get funding on your platform, and give us a sense of why those are so big problems that they need more money.
Right. So I think the number one is patients who are admitted at hospitals for critical illnesses, right? So cancer, organ transplants, ICU, the typical average expense for these cases could be anywhere from 15 lakh rupees to 25 lakh rupees, which is very difficult in India, even for middle class customers to actually afford. The second cause that actually gets funding is memorial cases. So unfortunately, because not only do people not have health insurance, they don't have life insurance. So whenever somebody who unfortunately passes away, particularly he or she is the breadwinner of the family, the colleagues of that individual come about to make sure that they raise a pool of money to help the surviving family members. And the third largest cause that gets funding is actually social causes like raising money for animals. So particularly, whether it's dogs or elephants, whether it's for their nutrition, whether it's for, taking care of abandoned animals, whether it's for, adopting and transforming certain, centers where all of these animals are kept and provided, the best care possible. Those 3 are the largest categories of fundraising on our platform so far. So healthcare, memorials, and animals.
Thank you for being so specific. If you take the whole crowdfunding industry, where was it in February and where is it in October end? Give us a sense of growth.
I believe the entire crowdfunding sector is probably grown by close to 100% in the last 6 months. Basically, just like for EdTech, COVID has also played a very instrumental role in basically highlighting to society, the role and importance of, even people donating as little as 1 rupee towards any cause that they are passionate about, and how much that can really add up when you really aggregate large number of people contributing towards cause.
Okay, guys,
right?
before I take a break,
more
I'm
than
just going to do a quick interjection, and Piyush, so how do you convert crowdfunding into a business? Do you guys rely on separate donatives coming your way? Is it a percentage of the donation? How do you guys keep afloat?
Yeah, so we recently basically decided to make our platform fee zero. We charge a small payment gateway fees, which is something that global crowdfunding platforms charge. But now the vast majority of our revenue is actually coming from optional contributions from donors who are voluntarily choosing to provide a tip to sustain our platform. So that is the primary source of revenue for the company. It is optional contributions from donations, from people who believe in our mission of actually helping save lives, whether it's of patients in hospitals, whether it's dogs on the road, or any other
so Piyush,
person.
how much is it happening in the area of good causes that you're working? I was interviewing Kunal Kapoor a week or so ago, and Keto, of course, is working on a similar model. Are we seeing but other kinds of models develop which are entrepreneurial models, or other? I mean, are we seeing a patron kind of model develop in India? Are we seeing a situation where you can actually go and in a Kickstarter model or an Indiegogo model? Are you seeing those things happening here?
So it's a great question. So actually, even in the US, GoFundMe, the largest donation-based crowdfunding platform, is actually 3 to 4 times bigger than Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And even in India, there were a lot of players who started off with rewards crowdfunding, trying to do the innovative products and services, including film projects, etc. The reality is that they have not been able to scale up as much as the donation crowdfunding platforms. It's counterintuitive, perhaps, but actually the supply of money, if I go back to Rachit, he was talking about that, is much more from a philanthropic standpoint as compared to people buying innovative products and services which are available in the Indian market on the Indian crowdfunding platform.
Because there is a logic.
And so
it's there's a logic of a pre-buying an idea or pre-investing into a product. Not just investing into a company. So let me put that to Rachit. Rachit, you mentioned that there are two sets of companies. One set that where the money is easily available, and the others where the money is not easily available. Do you advise them that, listen, hey guys, there is a chance that you can try to give a shot at crowdfunding? Is that coming into the component of your mind space thinking?
So honestly, this is something which needs to be done from a higher level, which is the government, I believe, because these policies are somehow so connected at a macro level that only when they tell the bigger guys or other bodies like RBI and the guys sitting at the top, only then these sectors can get good effect. Because see, when we talk about capital, huge amount is needed. It will not be solved by a group of maybe investors. It will be solved as a holistic.
Yeah, so Rachit, I'm just from the converting the theory into practice. I'm saying, let's say you take the hotel industry, right? So they are in a soup, recently opened for the entire lockdown. They're selling bookings for next year. You buy now and you utilize 1 year from now. Restaurants and hotels were doing the same thing. You take a coupon now, your spas and salons, and you can claim it for 1 year. So you forget the banks having to convince them that you'll be viable. Don't wait for government bailout. Get people to directly invest in the product that you can offer them at a later date. Is that a logic of funding that could happen in India as it's happening in other parts of the world?
See, as I said, in India, this is something, if the platforms are easily available and there's a lot of consumers who are literally going to buy it, only then it's possible. As on today, I don't see enough innovative platforms, to be honest, which are available in order to help such kind of things.
So that's a good problem you've isolated. Okay, let me rope in Meghna on this. Meghna, during the actual lockdown, we're not in lockdown, we're unlockdown, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, whatever we are in. Did you guys have these internal meetings that, guys, while we are waiting and our supply chains and our physical stores don't work, we want to go out there and be, pre-selling, giving out coupons? Were these ideas discussed even in a space as important as yours?
Absolutely. the only platform that worked during and even was our own website. So we were doing pre-orders on products that we didn't have the ability to even make at that time. But we said we will ship them the moment we're ready to make them. That might be a month, it might be 6 weeks away, and people were buying them. Right, so it is possible to do it. I don't know if you can sell a product for next year now. Maybe a sort of hotel, luxury hotel or a luxury vacation that people are dreaming about maybe. But I think for a food product, you maybe have a sort of 6 to 8 week.
Yeah, but you can sell a coupon for it where somebody invests now. It's like an investment in you for 6 months later. Let me ask the same question to if I can, Kushang. We have gotten into the past 4 or 5 years, the concepts of, incubation, round day fundings, of not doing the traditional thing of first you take loan from family and friends, then you take loan from bank, and the IPO comes many years later when you go to public funding. Now it's reversed. You get investors in at the very beginning, and IPO may or may not come. When it comes to sourcing directly from people who are buying into an idea, I'm not talking about angel investors, I'm not talking about startup incubators. Do you guys discuss this in your own community that, listen guys, it's an option of funding we need to consider?
Oh yes, definitely. So I mean, we strictly believe in this, and we have actually spoken to our customers, internally as well, that this could definitely help. And the good thing is that there are a lot of people in the ecosystem who can actually give you value as well, along with money. So we definitely believe in that, and with desired regulations, we can definitely open up that line as well. So internally,
so you're saying so the adaptation is happening, and we just need now it to just to gather some momentum on its own, where an entrepreneur can list their product or idea on a website and fund it. And once you fund it, you can then, that pays for your production costs. Let me get Rohit into this conversation. Rohit Manglik, in a very real sense, as we're looking from the example that Piyush has just given us, that there are people out there now who are willing to voluntarily pay for a service, even though that service is performing a charitable good cause. So if his majority of his funding is coming from voluntary subscription, that means people are willing that you guys are doing a good job, you have a good platform, and we don't mind giving you funds. Is there a logic emerging that for online and virtual services or service provision, that the mindset is now that we should be willing to pay for this? It can be that somebody is more than happy with a 40-minute Zoom meeting and somebody says, no, I want to buy into a Zoom license. Are you seeing that marketplace emerge?
In the very beginning, when we talk about friends funding fees, right, when the days is around 30 to 50 lakhs, right? So in that amount, yeah, we can go for people who just want to put in money because we're in the debt free, right? But the market has emerged over the last 1 decade or 2 decades, right? So now the funding is more towards your P&L of what impact you are getting this, right? How you can make it a sustainable business model. And that's how the whole trend has shifted. So even if you check out the angel networks, the HNIs, the VC firms, so most of them will ask you for your balance sheet.
Yeah, no, but the question I'm asking is, are people out there, this applies to the industry that Anurag is in, that I am in, and we are asking the same questions. Are people out there willing to pay for a .com news story, right? Are you willing to pay $5, $10 subscription? Because earlier that wasn't the model. Are we finding people who are willing to pay for virtual services?
I feel that there are very few. So you mean in terms of funding or in terms of...
No, willing to pay for services or... Yeah, so willing to pay for services. Piyush's customers are willing to pay him a premium. In fact, a premium over and above for his services.
Yeah, people are, right? So in the AdTech especially, people are in fact paying the premium. So, for example, in the pre-COVID area, even our price was around 70% of what it is right now.
Okay.
And people have accepted it. Even our number of transactions has increased by 100%, even though traffic was increased by 80%.
Okay, so good. So there's a price realization happening, and there's an organic market force driven price realization happening. which is fascinating. Let me get Harsha back into this. Harsha, this transition, both in products and services, to providing them online, where initially the model would have been provide a deep discount to do customer acquisition. Is there a mindset change where people are saying that I'm willing to pay what is a reasonable price, not some 20 rupees to do a delivery? No way in heck is anybody making a profit anywhere on 20 bucks to do a delivery. Are we seeing a price realization emerge as we're exiting this unlocked down phase?
So we're into the water management sector.
Yeah.
So here, initially it used to be a product. We used to sell a product altogether, but now people are moving to subscription models. So you don't sell the product at a time, but you sell them subscription per month or per quarterly. So people are moving towards.
Can you
this,
explain that? So when you install a flow meter somewhere, or you doing some, are you saying, okay, not only will we install the flow meter, but we'll provide you the service of a backend app that will actually do the tech for you and give you details. So you do all of that as well.
Yeah, so forget the instrument. You don't have to deal with the equipment and data it gives. We directly deal with the final solution that you require to reduce your water footprint, to manage your rivers, to manage your canal. We directly do that and you pay us in a subscription model. So this is coming up where your asset liability is going down, and the risk of asset failure is also going down. So the vendor has capacity to take care of it.
How is the price realization? Are people valuing the service? That one was, okay, I pay 100 rupees for the flow meter. You guys come and install it, and then maybe there's a maintenance charge, and that's it, right? But now you're saying I'm going to provide you the back-end tech that in which to monitor the flow meter and do the data analytics out of the flow meter, and that's a service model also has a values. Are you seeing a better price realization for that service model now?
Right. Yes, because at the end of the day, the customer, the real value lies with the final service. So the price realization is also way higher in the, if you can deliver the final output and rather than the bits and pieces of it.
So your company is more valuable because you're providing the back end as well as the flow meter than if you were just selling the flow meter.
We are more valuable by selling a solution than just selling a part, which is a
product. We were in the flow of a very fascinating conversation. Now that we're back from the break, let's pick it up. Rajat Chawla, we have to look ahead. There are things that we can do, can't do. Given where we are right now, what is the intervention required? Because I frankly feel that there is an intervention required in just making people think that Indian companies are very happening and there are great products and innovations happening right here. So that's why this show is happening. Where is the intervention required, Rachit, in the models that you work for? You already isolated a problem for us. Now help us find a solution.
So the solution is divided into two parts. We need to increase the demand on one side and we need to increase the liquidity on the other. So once the demand is there and liquidity is there, I think the entire cycle which got blocked during the lockdown will start opening up. Now in terms of liquidity, I think FDIs are a great way to attract foreign investments into India, because ultimately that will create a lot of jobs. And that will create jobs, will obviously create a lot of demand, and it will increase India's economy. It will at least get the economy back on track at the earliest. So I think that is something we should look at. These two aspects are very important.
Okay.
And apart from this, I think economic stimulus 0.20 version is also coming.
So you're looking forward to it. How soon it's coming, we don't know, but you're really looking forward to going through what that stimulus is, and you've identified a very simple and clear problem, that there are certain sectors who are getting an excess of funding available, but the places feeling the most amount of pain and therefore having the most amount of risk are not getting the funding from traditional sources. Let's get Meghna back into this conversation. Meghna Narayanan, this is the third time I've had to mention this because how much you have demand, right? But when you're dreaming, of scalability, are those big dreams on hold? Are the big dreams going, no, this is the time? And how much do you feel is required for something to change for you as an entrepreneur to say, okay, hang it, we need to be in 2,000 locations, 5,000 locations, 10,000 locations, then go global?
So I think, COVID brought one thing very close to most businesses, which is your focus on unit economics, right? We thought actually that we were very, very, careful, and I was very proud of it. COVID provided the tight slap that perhaps we needed, right? And we have really, really focused on, on profitability like never before. in terms of, and it has come without having to degrow. In fact, like I said earlier, we have doubled in size. What we are building is, is products that are good for us, good for the planet, good for the farmer.
Yeah.
Right. So these are, we use sustainable grains, grains that are indigenous to India.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out where if you really wanted, so you're saying your top line is growing and your bottom line is better than it was before the lockdown. Okay, so that's the best way of running the company. You're in great shape. If you really wanted to go big, if you're thinking scalable, what is the area that concerns you? Is it, look, the supply we won't get? Is it on packaging? Is it on distribution? Or is it that, okay, there's a limited demand. After a point, the demand won't keep up with what our ability to supply the product?
So I think it's all of these, right? There's going to be, we will hit we've seen many companies before us and, sort of hit a cap. And I think there's no question, as Rajat was saying, that there is going to be a clog in demand. I mean, people have lost jobs unless there is sort of a very significant stimulus. Working capital.
Okay, so you're still hopeful of a significant stimulus because you need the economy to be going. Even if what you're saying is making perfect sense, people still have to be able to afford perfect sense. Okay, when it comes to very practical realities, Rohit Manglik, what is the problems that still need fixing? Rohit, if you can hear us, if you can unmute yourself, Rohit. Okay, I think we've lost Rohit there, or maybe he can't hear us. Harsha, why don't you take that? In practical realities, what are the problems that need fixing? Unmute yourself, Harsha, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So regarding the business in water, sorry.
In practical realities, what are the problems that need fixing?
Yeah, hello.
Right. Yeah.
Harsha, can you hear us? Guys, can you not hear me at all?
We can.
No, Rohit is
Harsha, the question was to you. In practical realities, what needs fixing?
Right. So in practical reality, in water sector, we need to fix the water pricing. So that is the one that is choking the demand.
I hope,
that is limiting
Harsha, after this water is not going to air, and you'd say we should pay for our air too.
But essentially, we need to pay for the water because we don't end up paying the water directly. We end up paying more. So if you see our canal efficiency, 22.5 million hectares of the land is supplied by the canal water, but average national efficiency is 38%. It's too poor. In the developed countries, it is around 70%. So because customers don't pay for it, there is no incentive for the managers to maintain a proper professional service delivery. So that is, you don't pay more. At the end, the actual farmers who require the water do not have access to it. This is the sad story, but we need to pay for the water. It's time we start.
Okay, so we've had farm reforms. You want water reforms in this country. Rohit Manglik, what do we need to fix still before I hand back to Anurag?
Yeah, so there are 3 things that we need to fix. First is we need a streamlined process for the examination. So right now what happens is the government body declares the exam and then keeps on getting postponed, and there are multiple bodies there's a lot of politics that comes into play. So now we need a centralized body that can streamline each and every process of the examination. Second is because of the COVID, we realized that the education can be imparted, the testing part can be imparted online. Now we don't have the right hardware, and so the students don't have the right hardware where they can access the content, where they can study from. Even though there is a lot of free content available, that imparting, that getting the education, that getting the content is not available with most of the students. So
the people who need the education the most are the most lacking the tablets, the computers, the internet access. And that's a major problem. Okay, I think there's any other point, then I hand back to Anurag. Finish your thought.
Nothing else.
Okay, Anurag, take it away.
So, we've been doing this for a while. We've discussed where each one of your businesses is headed. Now, one thing COVID has taught us, if we're all genuinely interrelated, what happens in environment impacts health, it impacts businesses. What happens in lives impacts livelihood. We all are connected. We're all interconnected. Now, so let me ask you two questions. One, when do you see the Indian economy coming back in full bloom? In 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months? Second, what's your one or two lockdown lessons that you've learned in COVID that will hold you in good stead throughout your life? So let me start with Meghna first and go to everybody else.
So I think, I don't think anything is coming back in 6 months. There'll be winners and losers, but I think for the economy.
Why do you say that? Why do you feel that, as you said, nothing is coming back in 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there have been a lot of job losses unless there is a significant, government spending, capital spending and consumer spending. All these three need to come back. This is not the time for economic orthodoxy. These are extraordinary times, and we have to, extraordinary measures are necessary to sort of get ourselves out of this, and that's going to take time, right? So I'm hoping, by the end of 2021, we're sort of back where we started. That would be a very good outcome. Individual businesses, there will be winners and losers and sectors and so on and so forth, right? Like we've seen that play out. For us, it has meant that, even within the sector that we play in, there are startups that have folded. People have gotten back to, other jobs and so on and so forth, not fighting the fight, couldn't continue. They ran out of capital, whatever it is, right? So I think for us, as a company, it's not just Shoravi and me, the other mother who runs Slurp Farm. Everybody in our company understands unit economics right now. And that for me has been the biggest win.
From growth to profitability. Earlier it was about growth at any cost. Revenue need not be necessarily more than the cost. We focused on GMVs and valuations and, customer acquisition. We didn't focus on profitability. Good.
Yeah.
Let me ask Kushank, what's your assessment of when the economy will be back in full bloom? And what's your top one or two lockdown lessons?
So I feel the different part of the economy has been hit differently by the pandemic. So I feel there will be a phase-wise recovery because the relief has also reached in a phase-wise manner. The mechanism has been such that even a lot of industries are still not getting the relief. For example, the food and beverage industry, where we operate heavily. The restaurant industry is still struggling with the high rentals, and a lot of regulations is required in that direction. So I see a phase-wise recovery. I still agree with Meghna, 6 months is too short. Maybe some industries will recover. For example, EduTech has blossomed.
Some industries will really grow fast, and some industries will continue to see a downturn and maybe take very long to come back.
But from a I believe that it will take somewhere around 18 months for a full economy coming back, or maybe more. I am a little pessimistic there because I'm still not sure of the mechanisms which the government is following in terms of providing the relief. On the other hand, the lessons which we have learned, the first is that we have been dependent on feet on street because we operate in a B2B manner. So that has eroded. We have now multiple channels through which we acquire customers. And the second thing is that we have also learned a lesson in terms of unit economics. That is something which you might find common among all the panelists. And that has definitely changed our gene. So I will just like to add, it is sustainable growth is what we have learned in this pandemic.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Rohit. Rohit, when do you think the economy is back in full bloom? And what are your one or two top lockdown lessons?
So I believe within next 12 months, it will be in the full bloom. And the three lessons that we learned were, first is we should be ready to scale up anytime. So things might change over the night. So for example, our sales was increased by 100% over a week, right? Second is automate wherever you can. Try to reduce resources, try to reduce manpower, and even if it requires you capital expenditure in the first run. But in the long run, it will pay you more. Number three, EduTech companies will play a dominant role in reviving the Indian economy. We have seen a lot of transactions that there's a huge mode shift from the offline to online space. So tech can play a dominant role over there.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Rachit. Rachit, when do you see the economy is back in full bloom, where loan disbursals are maybe 500% of what you're doing? Because it's a credit issue. We don't know the person we are lending to, his or her organization will be in a position to return. So there is a cautiousness there. So what's your sense, Rachit?
So Anurag, I feel that 12 months should be a decent time period for the economy to be back, but that is contingent strictly to the stimulus package number 2. The reason I say that is some industries have not seen slowdown. They have just grown like anything during COVID, which is, technology, pharma, FMCG. But there are certain industries which has really gone back. Now the government sort of needs to, hold them together with the rest of the industry so that everybody comes at a pace, and that's really the key here. And if government is able to do it, the economy will be back on track very quickly. But if one industry is totally neglected, which is the case right now, I would then extend my period to 18 months maybe. But yes, economy should be reviving very soon.
And what are your top lockdown lessons? What has changed in your thinking that will help you run your enterprise better?
Yeah, so Anurag, sometimes, you come across these quotes which really hit you when, you're struggling with your cash flow. So I saw a quote which said, sales is vanity, profits are sanity, and cash flows are reality. That is something which COVID has taught us, that we should always focus on having good amount of reserves with us. We should not do business thinking tomorrow will be better than today. We should always have enough cash flows in the bank account sitting idle just for a rainy day. So our focus has really gone down to reducing the fixed cost. Our focus has gone down to maybe increasing variable. Variable won't really bother in the long run as long as cash flows are strong and cash flows are coming our ways. So that is a strong lesson which COVID has taught us. And sky is the limit. Now we used to have huge travel expenditure pre-COVID, but during COVID the meetings are happening virtually, like this meeting, right? So we save on the fuel cost, we save on the time, we are getting more efficient. Otherwise, I remember coming all the way to NewsX studio. Now I'm sitting in my office, so I utilize that time. So all these things have been taught to us.
The only thing I'd say, in certain parts, the more digital grows, the more the value of physical contact, of face-to-face conversation. What we are doing right now is out of compulsion. We'll have to see what are the behaviors that stick in terms of choice. And I think the jury is still not out on that. Let me bring in Harsha. Harsha, when do you see the economy back in full bloom? And what are your top 2 lockdown lessons?
So I think there would be a phase-wise recovery. But even though 18 months would be a good time to come back, but I don't think we'll be going back to the same place as we were. There are some permanent learnings that we learned from COVID, which sectors are important for us, and the essential sectors are going to go high. And the place we are going to come back is definitely not where we went down. And the permanent the learnings that I took from it is same as what Meghna suggested: unit economics and profitability. And these are the 2 important things. And third is the focus. We have been spread in multiple sectors, but what we realized is focused approach towards profitability and keeping in mind of the unit economics is the key. And I think this is going to go long term with me.
Thank you so much. Piyush, you have the final word on the panel. 1, when do you see the economy coming back in full bloom? And what are your top lockdown lessons?
So I think it's very important to talk about the healthcare pandemic, because until that is sorted, the economy cannot recover, right? And so while of course there's great optimism on the vaccines and their potential, what a lot of people do not realize is that there are 2 vaccine shots that will be required. Yeah. And typically a vaccine for a influenza type of virus is only, the effectiveness is 50 to 60% at best, which means that what a lot of people are not talking about today is the fact that maybe we have to live with COVID in some shape or form beyond 2021 as well, right? So what does that mean from an economic perspective? It means that, of course, as the treatment drugs will get better, and of course there will be vaccines which will have some degree of effectiveness, it's not going to be a permanent solution, right? And so it will be a gradual recovery. The latest forecasts of IMF are that India's GDP will decline by 10% this year, and it's expected to grow by 8.8% next year, right? So with those numbers, 2021 will still be lower than 2019. But I'm not as optimistic as the IMF. I think it's going to take some time for the recovery, for the job engine to kickstart, independent of how much stimulus the government provides. The Indian government has provided pretty significant stimulus with 20 lakh crores. But still, if you compare that to the US, it's still not a lot. With inflation also rising at 7%, you also have a different challenge. You know, if you provide too much stimulus and you have too much fiscal deficit, that also creates certain problems. So economic recovery is going to take some time. I would forecast 24 months to even beyond for it to, you know, go back to our positive growth rates, the kind that we had prior to this COVID pandemic. On the lessons learned, I think anticipation is better than reaction. So actually, I had the pleasure or mispleasure of actually being in China in January. And I was there right until Chinese New Year and actually could see this actually coming. And so we had the time in Impact Guru to sort of plan out certain things. Imagine if a doomsday kind of scenario happened. So we were well prepared for that. So I think we've learned that we need to anticipate more things, you know, in the future. And I think the second thing is, you know, people are more important than processes, right? Ultimately, our entire organization is working remotely today. I think you have to always evolve with the new times, right? In terms of how to allow people to work from home, how to give them flexible work times. Of course, the pressure to create social impact and to work hard is always there. But, you know, you have to reinvent and re-engineer processes depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances, right? So we will keep on doing that at Impact Guru even going forward.
Thank you so much, Piyush. Back to you, Rishabh.
All right. With that, do check out impactguru.com, especially if you need some or a case where needs help, can be listed there for crowdfunding. And if you're making a contribution on impactguru.com, remember that the large part of them being able to run the platform is voluntary contributions you make on top of that. So help them do that. Check out Supply Note to solve your supplying concerns. You get your health food now from Slurp Farm. Make sure you're checking out EduGorilla. And of course, if you are an SME looking for a loan, Finway Capital, he's already told you the industries in which the loans are easily available, but I'm sure it's otherwise also. And without a doubt, check out what Harsha is up to at Kritzman Tech as well. Keep reading Business World. Thank you for watching NewsX. We are all in this family together. We all succeed, India succeeds. And for that, we need all of you out there to jump into Team India's effort. We leave it there.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.